So we're going to get started. We want to start off, just to keep admitting people as they come in. We want to start off by thanking everybody for being here. My name is Reina Cunzio, and I am a history teacher. And this is Amber Saracino. She is a school psychologist. And we created this parent reentry guide to really help support parents. In addition to being educators, we are parents. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, and Amber has pretty much the same situation going on.
Yeah, first grader, preschooler.
Yes, so we're very well aware of the need for parent support. And this plan really was conceived from the idea that this is a really challenging time. And Amber and I were working on a lot of reentry plans with other districts and really trying to think about, like, what is the fall going to look like? And we realized as we're reviewing a lot of these plans that the parent piece was, you know, it was a little bit lacking. Districts have so many other things to focus on, and we just wanted to make sure that we tackled this and addressed parent concerns.
Yeah, we were really excited when Dr. Cook reached out. As you know, your superintendent, he's absolutely focused in terms of what's best for parents. I mean, this parent panel that he put together for you guys is incredible. So we were really excited that he reached out to us, and you know, we've been presenting this to other districts and at the New York Association of School Psychologists. So, you know, we were excited that, you know, he absolutely is seeing the importance of this for his family.
For sure. And so, yeah, we're really excited to share this with you today. And we're going to start off tonight with a quick little video that might kind of resonate with some parents out there.
Hey Lizzie, it's Kim. Thanks, Frank. Man, have you heard about this school thing? What are you guys doing about school? Have you guys made a decision yet?
Hey, you airheads. What are you guys doing about school?
This is just so hard, right? It's like, yeah, right? We're definitely sending them. We're definitely doing virtual.
We may do the hybrid option.
You know, Frank, we're still weighing the options.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly what we've been going through for the last couple of months, and I'm sure parents out there, all of you have been experiencing the same exact thing. It's really been what do I do, what is best, and you know, it's really been like changing daily. You know, some days I'm like, exactly like here, I want to do hybrid, I want to do remote, I'm not sure what to do. But here we are starting remotely this year, and we want to make sure that parents have supports at home. So that's really going to be our focus tonight.
Yes. So in terms of the guide, Dr. Cook is going to provide that to you if you didn't already. And the guide, we will kind of show you a couple of areas of the guide. This is how it's outlined, and we want to make sure that while the focus of tonight's presentation is going to be social emotional learning, we want to make sure that the guide is actionable and that you can use it with your children right away. So we want to give you that brief overview of some of those other sections as well. The guide is broken down into 4 main sections: social emotional learning, your academic section, supporting your students academically, certainly not to replace the curriculum in any way, but to really support and supplement in terms of resources. That 3rd section is family culture and well-being, and the 4th section is health and operations. So for the purposes of tonight's presentation, that social emotional learning section is actually going to be saved for last, because we're going to really spend an extensive amount of time on that. And we're going to briefly overview the other sections. So again, like Reina had mentioned, really the purpose of this guide is to help parents navigate these very unprecedented times, to provide solutions. You know, we've all spent a lot of time venting and sifting through a lot of challenging information, a lot of content out there. So we really worked together to compile this information into one concise place and to give you the best resources and supports that are really kind of best practice, most, you know, up to date. So we really want to help bridge that gap. So before we get into everything, in terms of the guide, when you open up that guide, the easy way to navigate it, and I'm going to just pop it up because I want you to really quickly see, I have this hyperlinked here, to use the table of contents. So while it's an extensive guide, it's going to not necessarily be something you can read front to back, But if you look at the bottom of each page, there's a footer that links you right back to the page of table of contents. So if you need something, or if you're looking for something specific, you can go right to that page and really identify what you need, so you don't have to waste a lot of time scrolling through. So I just want to quickly show you in the guide what that's going to look like. So like I said, you may already have this, or you will receive this soon. So again, it breaks it down. You can hyperlink right to your page numbers, but that's going to be your best way to really utilize this guide, you know, to the best of your ability. So let me open that back up. So also another way to really benefit from what we're providing today that Dr. Cook is also giving you guys is access to training modules. Each of these sections is going to also be supplemented with different training modules that are broken down into anywhere from a 5-minute video to a 10-minute video that really makes the plan actionable and really easy to understand some of this content. And then also, you know, reach out if you have any questions about the parent guide or need additional assistance. So we're going to jump right into.
If I can jump in 1 second, as I'm Damien, I'm helping Ms. Saraceno and Ms. Kunzio to moderate tonight. And just one thing for all the parents that are there, we're going to divide the questions up into, as best we can, to every 15 minutes, we'll take questions. And just one thought to take away is, if you have a question, it's pretty likely that someone else has that same exact question, so don't be afraid to ask it.
Great. Thank you, Damien. So as we said a little bit earlier, we are going to spend the bulk of this presentation on social emotional, but I don't want to forget the other sections that are also extremely important. A lot of parents have concerns about academics right now, and we do have a pretty extensive academic section that will help support parents at home. So part 1 really focuses on supporting your child's academic needs. Part 2 is going to talk about supplemental academic supports for home. 3 is going to talk about the resources and supports by classification. And there's a very extensive, amazing virtual field trip by content area for you as well. Okay, so going into kind of the key points of the academic section. So we are not asking parents to be teachers. We know that you have a million other things to do, that you have your own careers, that this is a very challenging time, but you are going to be asked to be in some way a co-educator to really support in a way that you haven't necessarily in the past. So, you know, part of this is going to be really taking your environment and turning it into sort of a makeshift classroom school environment. So parents will be needing to create an environment that's conducive to learning, and we do show you in the plan exactly how to do that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a separate office in your room where your child can work. But it does mean that you might want to make sure that your child isn't laying in bed doing their work, because they also might be doing some other things at the same time. We don't want them on Instagram while they're doing their math work. We don't want them Snapchatting while they're supposed to be doing their social studies, especially social studies. So we want to just make sure that they are in an environment that's conducive for learning. So we talk about how to create that space. Also in the academic section, there's an extensive list of supports for our parents who have students with exceptionalities. This is very challenging for any parent, but especially for our parents who have students with special needs. So we want to make sure that we provided the top resources for every single classification. It's broken down by classification. So in addition to breaking down by classification, we also have supports for our ESL students. We want to make sure that, you know, during this time that there are just an abundance of resources available to our parents. So this is where, I don't know if I had just said that, where the table of contents really comes into play here. You can just go to whatever it is that you need. If you have a student who has autism and you really want the best resources available, you would just go to that link on the table of contents.
Great. So in terms of some of the concerns, we recognize as parents, you are concerned about, is my child going to regress? Are they going to be engaged in remote learning? Are they going to learn anything? Can my child do the work remotely? We understand that these are the concerns, and we want to walk you through one scenario and how your district is supporting you and how your role is really important in this process as well. So let's take a big concern that we know a lot of families are facing right now is my child will not learn anything in a remote learning environment. So I know I've heard that as a school psychologist, Raina's heard it as an educator. It's a big concern for our families right now. I mean, it sounds like your district is doing an incredible job with your academic support and your learning modules and your Google Classrooms. But again, we want to make sure that you feel competent in that process. So this may look like, is my child grasping the content? Do they feel comfortable in Google Classroom? Maybe your child isn't understanding the requirements. My child doesn't have access to Wi-Fi. So these are just some areas of what this could look like in terms of this concern. So what is your district doing to support you? Your teachers are working very closely with students, making sure your students are understanding what's going on. Your teachers are making sure they're having that direct contact regularly. There's a combination of different formats in terms of how your child is learning. And your district is providing Wi-Fi access to families that potentially need that. And your district is providing computers and technology. So your district is working really hard to support that potential concern you have as a parent. In terms of what could your role be in that process, that's a really important part of the process, making sure that you as a parent are setting those clear expectations. So taking that control back, I know as a parent, in terms of what that looked like for my kindergartner in the spring was very different than what that's going to look like for my kindergartner in the fall. So we need to really make sure as parents that we're setting those expectations, we're creating those schedules, right. We are checking in with our child every day, making sure they're completing their work, and we're also providing that positive feedback. So encouraging them, saying, we understand you're working really hard. A lot of the stuff that you do naturally as a parent, but it's extremely important to make sure we continue to do.
Right, and if just I could jump in there for a second, I know that as an educator, the beginning of the year is so important because you have to set those very clear expectations from the beginning. And I think that one of the reasons our kids really struggled so much in the spring was because it wasn't something that was established. We all were kind of just forced into this remote learning model. No one had time to prepare for it. And this is going to be a completely different experience. Your teachers are prepared. This is going to look very different. So, even though you're going to start in a remote environment, setting those very clear expectations, like this is not the spring. This is a different situation. And, we need to act as if we are in our regular school year, although the setting is a little different from the start, but setting those expectations is so helpful in the beginning. We're going to move into, obviously there's a much more extensive academic section that you can refer to in the plan. And also you'll have an opportunity to view the academic learning module that will help break it down even further and make it more actionable. Part 3 of our plan really focuses on family culture and well-being. Now, this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I have spent a lot of time researching in this area, and I think it's something that we don't really think about that much. But as a parent, once I say this to you, you're going to be like, "Oh yeah, that's a problem," and that's really creating a very healthy work-life balance. Those lines have never been more blurred than they are right now. During the spring, so many parents were just kind of also thrust into working from home and having their children home. And I know some parents are going to be working at home again, and some parents are having to go back to work, and they're going to have to balance this in a different way. So we really wanted to give parents some tips for how to create that healthy work balance. In the guide, you can see that we've posted several articles for you to understand what does that healthy work-life balance look like and how can I achieve that. And then really something that I also talk a lot about in there is the work-family guilt. And that's really just when you have that feeling of guilt because you have to miss something. Maybe you have to go to work this fall and you're not going to be able to be home with your child during remote learning. So you might have a sense of guilt over that, and really avoiding the negative, kind of implications that can arise when that happens. So
Yeah, and just to add to that, if drop a line in the chat, let us know what was most challenging for you in the spring, or what are your anticipated concerns in the fall for that work-family balance. So in terms of, yeah, if you want to keep going on that, sure.
So, as I just said, we know that so many families are overwhelmed right now. They need support. There's just a technology overload. You can also reference the guide. We talk about how, like, during remote learning, can you also focus on making sure that our children are not getting too much screen time. Screen time is, it's very challenging, but we can definitely help you to kind of come up with some solutions for that, and we do in the plan. Families are struggling with scheduling. Scheduling has been a nightmare, but your district will actually talk about that in the next slide, is making sure that they send home a schedule, and you'll be able to take that schedule and tweak it to meet your own personal family needs as much as you are able to do. So yeah, here's one example of that.
Yeah, so in terms of, that concern and kind of going through this same way, the main concern that we're hearing a lot of families talk about is, I have to work and I can't be home helping my child during remote learning, or grandma's going to be with my child. How are they going to help my child during remote learning? These are big concerns that our families are facing. And we hear you as parents, and your administration staff hears you, and your teachers hear you. So in terms of how they are really supporting you in that journey, is they are providing some sample schedules. They're providing you detailed information on how you're going to go throughout your day. Again, we can't stress enough how this is going to look very different than it did in the spring. And there's also an end in sight. You have a transition plan to return to school in October. This is temporary. And I think that that's also going to help you as parents really understand and kind of deal with some of that anxiety that we're feeling, because we have a plan now in terms of an end time and when our students are going to be transitioning back. Also, the virtual town hall meetings that Dr. Cook and his team puts together are going to be very helpful throughout this process. The new normal video, I mean, when Rain and I watched that, we were blown away by the extensiveness of that. Just being able to look into the classroom and see what it's going to look like. That's relieving a lot of, I'm sure, your anxieties in terms of what school's going to look like. Those virtual field trips, again, they may help if your child finishes a session earlier than expected. Have them be proactive, set up those additional supplementary activities for them. And in terms of your role as parents, what you can really be doing is those regular check-ins. Really make sure you're implementing a schedule that you put in place. Talk to your child about those areas they don't understand. Really engage in that conversation. Encourage them to reach out to their teachers, email their teachers. Take that pressure off yourself as parents. That's something that I often tell my parents that I work with as a school psychologist, is empower your child, empower them to reach out to their teacher, empower them to email, because that's building a tremendous amount of skill set for them. And it's really engaging with their teacher. And another thing is that we've really talked to parents about is creating potential co-op opportunities. So working with, if you have neighbors or friends that are in a very similar situation, alternating days, sharing responsibility. You're checking in with my child on Monday and Tuesday. I'm checking with your child on Thursday, Friday. Be creative, be flexible. And same thing with the hybrid model as you transition back. Carpooling, working. This is a time where, while we're creating social distance, we need our community more than ever. And we really need to be creative, and we really need to work together to come up with kind of alternative solutions, and check in with families that maybe aren't as vocal as maybe you are in this process, and ask them if you could support them. I think that's a really important part of this process of what we're facing at this time, is reach out to somebody, ask if you can support them if you're able to. So. We're going to briefly talk about this last section before we get into the social emotional, and it's the health and operations and health. So this section really just goes over accessing that digital resource. We give you some different healthy lifestyle exercise resources, some fun ones for yourself, some fun ones for your children. There's so many free resources out there. I think that's one thing that so many people tapped into during this time is you can do a Zumba class in your living room. You can have your child do.
If you haven't,
Yeah.
Go Noodle is my favorite.
Yes.
I know my son Max's kindergarten teacher was phenomenal, and Go Noodle was one of Max's favorite things to do. He could go on there, do indoor recess, and they have mindfulness videos. They have really just so many different amazing things, and the kids just love them. And I'd be like, you can't just do Go Noodle all day. We have other things that we have to do. But, just like being able to engage them, especially if it is raining and you can't go outside, the weather doesn't, isn't working out for you, you can still get them to be physically active indoors.
Absolutely. So in terms of one of the things that we have in the guide is a 5-point health check. I know Dr. Cook and the school nurse are going to provide you a lot of detailed medical information, but this is something in the guide we recommend. Print it out, put it by the door. As you transition to that hybrid option, making sure, did you check your temperature? Did you check all your warning signs for illness? Did you put on your mask? Do you have everything by the door? We recommend putting a little basket by the door that has extra masks, extra gloves, anything that you could need, anything that's going to make your day easier and be proactive and really just make it simpler for that process. And then the guide goes into some medical resources that you may need.
So in terms of like the key points that are in this area, I think we did a pretty good job of just going over this, but parents need to be provided the information that's pertinent to the situation and location. We really have so many resources available in this section to really help parents. The local resource section is going to be so important, and we will walk you through that in a minute, exactly what that looks like. But every parent has a different need. And it's important that they know that these resources are available to them and how they can access them. And I think we covered this other section. So, for example, you might have somebody in need of assistance and they don't know who to ask or where to go. So this can look like my child needs to access a device or Wi-Fi, or I'm running low on food supplies and I'm not a person who's really usually in need of food, so I have no idea what to do. Or I need assistance with rent or housing. These are real concerns for parents right now. I need a COVID test and I don't know where to go. I'm getting a lot of mixed messages about COVID and I don't know what's true and what's not. How do I know if the information is reliable that my children are coming into contact with or that I'm seeing on social media? We know every single day there's a million different articles about, COVID and what's going on and the numbers. And it's really hard to determine what is accurate and what's not. So we want to make sure we provide links to really accurate and relevant information for you. So what has the district been doing in supporting this? Of the parent reentry guide, health and operations module that you're going to be provided. The new normal district video, again, this video was so extensive. It was the best thing I've seen for reentry so far. And I've been looking at reentry plans for the last 3 months. And I can tell you it was really extensive, from the bus to the hallway procedures to
how they're cleaning the desks, what they're using.
Every time I was thinking in my head, well, what's in that, and then it was explained. So I feel like it was very thorough. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, I think it really will put you at ease to know that these procedures are in place and every building principal is addressing their building individually. So really great resource. Also, the district's providing you, Dr. Cook's providing you with all the local agencies and supports that are attached to this guide. So everything that you could possibly need access to in Catskill and surrounding areas, you have that information at your fingertips. You don't have to look for it. Also, of course, your school nurse, your teachers, your social workers, all your support staff in Catskill is going to be working with you to make sure that you have any assistance that you need during this time. So what can you do on your end? Well, the major thing is just review all the district provided supports. If the district is putting these things out there, you really want to make sure that you are knowledgeable about them and that you know that you have these resources. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think a lot of us aren't used to being in a situation like this, right? We have no idea really what to do, what's going on. So, don't be afraid to reach out and ask the district for support. That's why they're there. Also making sure that you provide children with the accurate and developmentally appropriate information regarding the district policy and also COVID-19. And we have those resources for you.
Right. So any questions or anything coming up in the chat right now, Damien, or are we good?
No questions as of yet.
Okay. Well, maybe there'll be some pop up. We're going to really switch focus right now. We really, with talking with Dr. Cook, we kind of asked him, what are the biggest needs that you're seeing in your district, or maybe what's not being addressed right now? And we had a great conversation about social emotional learning. And he really feels like this is an area that's not really being tapped into. This is an area of significant importance for our children. While we know how important our academics are, we know when our social emotional is in check, our children are able to learn and they're available to learn. So this is extremely important. And, the next half hour, we're really going to be talking about, I don't want to avoid the back things. So, we're really going to be talking about that. So what is social emotional learning? It's a term you're probably hearing often. As a parent, you may be very familiar with what this is. And as a parent, you may not. And, that's okay. So basically that social emotional piece is really understanding, having yourself or a child understand their emotions, helping them to manage their emotions and achieving goals. So when your social emotional is in check, you're able to set goals and achieve them, developing positive relationships. So that could look like teamwork, that can look like sharing, that changes developmentally. All of these change when you're in different stages of development, but all of them are applicable throughout the course of development. And creating and making responsible decisions is a huge piece of social emotional learning. So making sure our children are making good choices. So just to give you a little bit of an overview here in terms of what social emotional learning is, this is oftentimes the main categories, and sometimes it could be termed a little bit differently. When we're talking about social emotional learning, these are the main categories we're really talking about. So self-management. So again, helping children manage heavy emotions. Our kids are struggling right now. They're anxious, they're scared. However it's manifesting in them is different than maybe their siblings. So we want to help them manage those emotions. So we're going to give you some great examples on really helping them continue to manage. So that's self-awareness, right? Recognizing their emotions. So as a parent, I'm often naming an emotion for my child. So I may say, Luke, I can see that you're really frustrated right now because your sister took that. Or I can see, Audrey, that you're really upset because you didn't get the second scoop of ice cream, right? So self-awareness, let's helping them recognize their emotions. And we can do that by labeling them and naming them and having those conversations. So decision-making is a huge area of social emotional learning. So again, making good choices. So our kids are going to make bad choices, right? We've been there, we've done that, but helping them understand what would be a better option next time? How can we make a better choice next time? And our children are going to make bad choices in distance learning, right? We have a great example here today, being with our drawings. How can we make a better choice? Let's channel that really creative spirit and put you in an art class, right? So there's ways to channel bad choices and make them into better choices. Relationship skills, right? We want to make sure our children are developing positive relationships. Right now, we understand our children are struggling socially. They're not connected as much as they would like. They're missing out on sports. They're missing out on the activities that they love, but it's still an opportunity to develop relationships. We just have to get creative. We have a new normal, right? So there's new ways to continue to foster these relationships. And we have to make sure as parents that we are providing that for our kids. And we give some great ideas on how to do that. And then the last area of social emotional learning that you'll hear a lot about is that social awareness. So while I may be able to understand my own emotions, social awareness is being able to understand the emotions of others. So a lot of time our kids that struggle with trauma or who are really struggling with anxiety, they may have a hard time being able to empathize with somebody else or understand the emotions of others. But that is a huge piece. We got to make sure our children are understanding how other people are feeling and being able to put themselves in other people's shoes. So
Okay.
Now we'll kind of talk about the guide is broken down a little bit.
Yes. So we talk about how the social emotional support section is broken down. And again, this is, you can use the table of contents and access any one of these sections that you really want to focus on. But we do start talking about tips on talking to children about COVID. We want to make sure that the conversations we are having with our children are age appropriate. They don't need to know everything, right? So we want to make sure that we tell them what they need to know at an age appropriate level. Part 2 talks about social emotional learning from home. So we give some really great choice boards and some really fun activities for kids to do at home to really strengthen those social emotional learning skills and to really put some tools in their social emotional toolkits. Parenting in the face of COVID-19 and distance learning. So this is really about the taking care of you piece. Our children cannot really be taken care of if we're not taking care of ourselves. So we need to make sure, you know, it's like that old saying, like, you want to make sure that you're putting your oxygen mask on first, right? Very important. So you want to make sure that you're really doing things, and we provide some really great resources for self-care. Social emotional check-ins. We'll talk about that in a minute, and the real importance of that, having those conversations with our children, making sure that we are aware of how they're feeling and that we support those feelings and acknowledge those feelings. And we spoke about this a little bit before, those local agencies and supports.
Yep. So really quick, again, the big piece in terms of helping your children understand their emotions is validating, right? Validating how they feel. So I know as a school psychologist, I could tell you one thing, and I know the theory and I know the practice, and then being a parent, right? It's really different. And, you know, there's times where I want to say, stop crying, or stop doing that, or stop. And what I'm really saying is stop feeling. And that's not fair for us to do as parents. And we're all guilty of it. But it's really important to validate. And that's as simple as, I know you're angry right now, or I can see you're really upset right now. That's it, right? I don't have to give excuses. I don't have to go into detail. I'm just validating how they're feeling so they feel heard. And how do we do that? We sit quietly and we listen. We are so quick as parents to talk over our children or tell them how they should feel or tell them what they should do. Guilty, right? We all are. But it's important to sit and listen. If there's times where you just want to explain or your child's not emotionally ready to hear something or respond, sit and listen. Remind them, I'm listening. Acknowledge their feelings. This takes a lot of practice. And like I said, I'm a psychologist and I still have to practice it. Understanding, and this wheel, while it can look a little overwhelming, you know, this is a great visual to understanding emotions on a more complex level. So you have right in the center there your primary emotions, right? Being mad or scared or joyful, and then they kind of branch out. So it's kind of good to look at those secondary emotions of, well, my child's feeling embarrassed. What could that really be? What my child, or my child's anxious, you know, what is that really looking like? So this is kind of a visual to kind of help you tap into your own emotional intelligence of emotions and feelings and looking at them from a broader perspective. But again, validating those feelings for your child and just listening is, you know, give them, so I know, sort of really quick, so sorry.
No.
Sometimes you have to give people a time frame, right? Because sometimes our kids can talk forever about how they feel. I'm going to give you 1 minute and you can tell me how you feel. And then we're going to table that and we're going to get back to your math homework, right? So sometimes we've got to put a timer on that too.
Okay, absolutely. And just in case you want to look over that wheel again, this will be available on the website. So you'll be able to refer back to any of these slides if you have additional questions or you can't remember exactly something we're saying right now. So, sorry. So we want to make sure that we are, I said that a second ago, really having those appropriate conversations with our children about what's going on. The very first thing that's so important is remaining calm and reassuring. If we are all frazzled and we're acting crazy, they're going to respond in the same way, right? So we are teaching our children how to respond to situations. So although we might be super stressed out, trying to really be calm and have those conversations from a state of being in control. Remain truthful. Be as honest as you can with your children about what's going on. Remind them that they're safe. Reassure them this is not a forever situation. Okay, we will get through this. It's, you know, it's going to happen. You will be able to play soccer again. You will be able to go to the movies with your friends. They need to hear these things right now. They need to know that there is an end in sight. Processing emotions regularly, like doing those daily check-ins and really having those conversations, like Amber said, validating those feelings, acknowledging them, and then maybe checking back. Oh, I know you were really upset about this earlier. How are you feeling about it now? Very important. Discussing the new practices at school. So you want to make sure you're reviewing again those practices. What exactly is the expectation? What does my code of conduct look like for this year? You know, what are the distance learning procedures? You really want to make sure that you know, are aware of all that. And engaging in some, you know, role-playing scenarios. We'll give you an example of what that looks like in a second. Stay in contact with the school nurse for updates. And remember to ask questions again. This isn't something that any of us have ever been through before, so it's completely acceptable to ask as many questions as you have. Okay, keeping these explanations age appropriate. So again, we said this is going to look different in elementary school. You might be giving a very brief explanation, using that appropriate language, and a lot of concrete examples, right? Those early elementary school students need those really concrete examples. But in high school, you can have a much more mature conversation about the situation. So we want to make sure that we're being age appropriate.
Yeah, and we do provide in the guide some social stories for students that have disabilities as well, because, you know, this is really complex. What is hand washing going to look like in school? And use the resources out there, social stories, read books. It doesn't always have to be, you know, conversations. You can do it in a playful way. So we're going to get into some of these really exciting playful ways right now.
Yeah, so these are just some different examples, and I won't go through every single one of them, but these are different examples of things that you can do. So in terms of, like I had just said, role playing, and this is something that I do with my son Max all the time. And this is really a great way to experiment with different emotions and behaviors and expectations. And children do best when they can act out a social scenario. So, you know, if there's something going on with your child, you can, you know, role play with them, really work through it. And I have found that this is really, my son is 5, and it really helps him to understand, okay, for example, over the summer, there was a situation going on with another little boy, and the little boy said some things that were a little inappropriate to him. And, you know, Max is just very like the kind of child that will just let anything roll off his back. And he's like, I just laughed and I ran away. But then it happened again, and same thing, he laughed and ran away. And I said, well, what if let's pretend that I'm this child, and let's have this conversation, and what are some things that you could say to me? And just having that conversation with him, and him saying, well, you know, I really don't like it when you say that to me. Or if you say mean things to me, I might not want to be friends with you. And really having him act that out helped him to understand how he could, you know, better manage the situation.
And that is right there. That's building that social awareness that we talked about earlier. And again, and also making good choices, right? That decision-making piece. So as a parent, you have so much control of building these social emotional skills in your child, and you're equipping them with these tools and skills that they're then bringing into the classroom. So social emotional learning starts at home. Our teachers reinforce it every day. But again, you can do so much with these skills. Mm-hmm. So now let's talk about some elementary ones.
What? Are we elementary?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So as we, you know, get a little bit of older, these things might look a little bit different. This is another thing that I have actually started to do with my son, although his handwriting needs a little work. So, you know, we're working on that, but starting a gratitude journal. It's so important that we really instill gratitude in our children. And it equates to happiness. And when kids are grateful, they're happier, and they just, you know, they enjoy things a lot more. So each day, having your child journal something that they're grateful for, acknowledging that, you know what, maybe things aren't great right now, maybe I'm going through a lot, but there's always something that I can be grateful for. And this helps to build that self-awareness piece again, and that self-management piece, and to review it in the evening and just look back and be like, wow, look at all these things from a week that I have to be grateful for. And we just started this not that long ago, but I can tell you that it's been a really great experience. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Put in the chats if you're able to. What are some activities that you're doing with your child at home that you're finding helpful? You know, I tend to find that if we share resources and share ideas, we really can help parents more. So throw out some things that have been helpful to you as a parent that you've been doing with your child. We'd love to hear your input and ideas. Now I want to kind of go over with you a couple different learning activities that you can do at home to really build these skills. So again, it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be hard. You're doing it naturally. You're not necessarily putting a name to it. But I kind of want to give you some very concrete ways you can build some of these social emotional learning at home. So let's take decision making first. So in terms of decision making, we'll use the grades K through 5 for this one. Have your child draw a picture of the world now and think of 8 ways you can make the world better, a better place. Have them write it down, have them draw it. You know, this age group, K through 5, they love presenting this. This is another great opportunity to engage socially. So say, you know, we're going to call 2 of your friends today on Zoom, and you're going to present to them your drawing and your picture, and you're going to talk about it. So, you know, this is a really simple way. But again, you're engaging with your child in terms of decision making. How can they make the world better? And use any situation you want. So say they're struggling with a situation in terms of, you know, not getting along with their sibling. How can we get along better with our sibling? Have them make up some special decisions and suggestions on how to do that. Let's take perspective taking, often referred to also as relationship building. So being able to understand that. Let's look at it from grades 9 through 12 if we go over on the right hand side. So creating a journal entry about a recent conflict or fight. So we know that our high schoolers struggle tremendously with these type of social situations regarding relationships, friendships, you name it, it's a struggle. So have them write it out therapeutically, taking the different perceptions of how other people are feeling. Make it engaging, have them write it as a story or have them do it as a play script, whatever is kind of their forte in terms of how they like to express themselves, or make it in a tech savvy way, you know, do it in a text conversation, right? So having them go back and forth. However they express themselves would be a really helpful way. But again, engaging that conversation, having them take different perspectives is going to help them understand where other people are coming from and how to better address the situation. So let's take self-awareness. This is a really fun one. Let's go with our high schoolers again, because I think our high schoolers are really missing out on a lot of these opportunities. This is something that I've done with my middle and high schoolers, having them write a letter to their future self. So talking about what are their strengths, what are areas where they want to grow as an adult or, you know, in their future. This is going to build that self-awareness. And this is something that's really nice for them to kind of look back on. It's something that I like to do in the beginning of the year and have them review at the end of the year. This is just building that self-awareness. And it's really nice for them to see their own growth and how they really grew throughout the year or, you know, when they look at it in their future self. So again, in terms of that self-management, right, we're really helping them manage their own emotions. So make a list. Let's go to our middle schoolers here, grades 6 through 8. Make a list of 5 things that you can do when you're feeling sad, right? Helping them build that arsenal of different tools that they can use. So I'm feeling sad. What can I do? I can listen to music. I can draw. I can take a walk. I can play Go Noodle. I can use my sensory activities. You have to help them create that list, right? Our kids are very quick and they're going to want to go to what is instant gratification, right? Our social media, post a picture, get 100 likes. Those are things that our students are using to make themselves feel better and manage their emotions. Let's give them the appropriate tools, and having them brainstorm those gives them autonomy over that type of activity as well. And then that last area, social awareness, can be simple and fun. Let's go back to our middle schoolers. Get a sticky pad. Write down 15 things that you can do for other people. And every time that you do one of them, you know, take that sticky pad away and you know, make it a mission for the week. At the end of the week, I want you to use all of these sticky pads and do all of these great different activities for others. So again, that social awareness piece, building that empathy and understanding in others, oftentimes we do that by helping other people and being able to see that reaction. So,
and that really will make our children feel good about themselves.
yeah,
You know, once they start engaging in those kind of activities and they're helping other people, it's just such a positive experience, and it really is gratifying for them.
So these are just a handful more, but I won't go through all of them. But again, reference this. If you're concerned in terms of what can I do to build these relationships, come back here and check out some of these resources. In the guide, there's plenty more as well.
Oh.
So
in terms of, let me just, so in terms of adult self-care, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to go into, you know, a little bit more depth here. You know, the first part of that is really the acceptance piece, remembering to work towards, I'm sorry, hold on one second. You know,
putting that oxygen mask on first, right? So you talked a lot about that. This wheel kind of helps you kind of understand the key areas that are really important for you as a parent to really focus on. So
the distractions, making sure that, you know, if there's an area of control in what you pay attention to and your children, this is very critical to well-being, and it is well within your control. We recommend unplugging from constant sources of news and social media. I have to watch the news because I'm a social studies teacher, but
I don't.
I'm telling you, it's painful. Like throughout the year, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be so in the know about what's going on. But, you know, if you can disconnect yourself and, you know, not be listening to all these different things every day, it really is, you know, beneficial to your own sanity.
Yeah, just making sure you really take care of yourself, and the guide has so many resources on how you can do that as well.
Yeah, making sure that you're getting adequate sleep, you know, and taking care of yourself, focusing on diet. That's, you know, all those things that are really so important right now in terms of like COVID, what's been going on with this pandemic. The more that we take care of ourselves, the less that we, you know, have to be so concerned about, you know, oh my God, what if I do get this virus? I think that if we're taking care of ourselves and we're doing the best that we can to make sure that we are in a good physical place, that it really, you know, it's just going to put us in a better position. It's not something that was really that talked about in the media, you know, but like the exercising piece and being physically active and just doing whatever we can to be, you know,
getting
the
dressed,
best versions of ourselves.
Getting dressed in the morning. I mean, we joke about that, but I think a lot of people realize how quickly the importance of getting your children dressed, even if you have nowhere to be, getting yourself dressed, it changes the entire day. And I think a lot of people realize that already from the experience in the spring, but that is so important and just sets the tone.
And when you're making a schedule for your children and this fall, even if you have a schedule already in place, you're following Dr. Cook's schedule, making sure that they are getting up and getting dressed and not doing their work in their PJs. It just sets such a different tone and expectation. As simple as that is, it's just so important.
So a question for Ms. Cunzio and Ms. Saraceno. Obviously, the two of you are in a unique situation because not only your parents, but you're a school psychologist and a teacher. So you have a different skill set maybe than some of our parents do. And one of the things that I know the parents have talked quite a bit about and asked about is say, look, how can I make sure that I'm keeping my child, you know, on track? Because yes, a resource like this is extremely helpful, and there are a lot of things in here that can lead them down the right path. But how can they, you know, how can they do this and go through the beginning of the hybrid section of the year without feeling kind of like they're failing their child, right? So, you know, because they're not, many of the parents are not teachers or not educators.
Right, absolutely. We actually have a whole slide dedicated to that question because we know that is so important. And, you know, we kind of go into, like we did before, what the district's doing, what you can do as a parent. So stay tuned. We're going to answer that question for you in good detail.
In just a moment.
So this is just a quick overview of the different strategies on how to deal with anxiety. We know our kids are struggling. So we just want to make sure that we're giving you some different tools that you can use. One being as simple as thought stopping and thought switching. So you may not be familiar with that term, but it's probably something you do kind of naturally, is in visualizing a stop sign, or having your kid envision a stop sign, or creating your own visual. And when you're having that negative thought, stop it, right? Just have that visual in your mind, and then thought switch. Put something else in place of that. Switch that negative thinking. And there are times when it's okay to vent and complain and go through how we're feeling. It's important to do that, but it's important to sometimes table it and thought stop or thought switch to something else. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we had talked a little bit about like coping skills and mindfulness earlier. I think that mindfulness is very important and helps our children to really be able to manage stress. And I know I had mentioned Go Noodle before because, you know, I'm a fan. So they do have a lot of mindfulness links there that you can really, you know, especially just helps your child to really like focus, calm down, and, you know, de-stress. And in the guide, there's so many other resources in addition to the Go Noodle that we mentioned for this, and really helping our children to be able to slow down, to meditate, to be mindful, to maybe engage in yoga practices, things like that, dance. You know, there's so many things that we can do virtually that we're not used to doing. I know that I'm in the process of signing. My daughter is 4 years old and she wants to do dance. And I'm like, you know what? We can't do it maybe in person this fall, but we can take a remote dance class. And why can't we focus on those skills and, you know, getting to see other kids who are doing the same thing, even if they are from home? It still kind of fulfills that socialization piece a little bit, and also gets them to kind of express themselves artistically.
Absolutely. So we certainly recognize the importance of socialization. I know you do as parents too. And the question is, how can they do it safely? Should my children be socializing? The answer is yes. There's plenty of ways to engage safely. You know, whether that's, you know, outdoor activities, you know, the CDC has said, you know, hikes and walks, you know, are very low risk activities. So there's no reason your child should be inside all day. You know, do those activities, have them do those meetups socially outside with the appropriate masks and, you know, social distancing. Do those, utilize technology to increase socialization. Have them do Zoom chats, have them do FaceTime. You know, there's something very different than texting with friends than actually having a Zoom chat or something like that. So very important to continue to have your child engage in socialization activities. This is just a quick thing I want to review with you. I know we're getting close on time here. We might go a few minutes over, but some of this stuff is pretty important to support you. So hang tight. In terms of the emotional check-in, this, like we've been talking about the whole time, is so important. Your child is really experiencing a lot of emotions. It's important to check in. We created a little visual here that's in the guide that may help you, because you may say, I'm helping my child, I'm checking in, but they're really struggling and I don't know what to do. So this is a decision tree that is very kind of simple to follow, that may help you if your child's struggling. So from the top here, are you struggling emotionally? For example, are you crying often? Are you feeling overwhelmed? If the answer is yes, right on the left-hand side, you can follow that down. I do not feel like I'm in control of these feelings. I don't know what to do. So again, follow that down. So try reframing your thoughts. Check out growth mindset stuff, materials in the guide. Okay, well, I've tried these suggestions and I'm still struggling. What do I do now? Reaching out to your school for support. So I'm kind of doing the drastic one on the end, so I can kind of show you all the way through the decision tree here. But knowing that if you tried a lot of suggestions, you've tried the tools, you've tried a toolbox of different activities, reach out to your school psychologist or your social worker or your teacher. Let them know your child is struggling so they can link you with the appropriate support. We provide a lot of different local agencies and supports, but your school can provide that for you as well. And always remember, as a parent, if your child is struggling or you feel that they're not in control, you can always dial 211. You can always access them immediate assistance and support, you know, in those emergency situations. So know that there's plenty of places out there that are providing immediate attention and support, because we do know our children are struggling. So again, just a simple way to kind of help you make a decision if you feel like you're struggling in terms of what do I do next. So
I know that this is exactly addressing the question that we had earlier in the chat. So
one of them, this is not the main one Damien was talking about, but yeah, go.
Oh, okay, this might not be that one, but we'll address it anyway, because it is a question that a lot of parents have right now. How can my kids feel connected? This is, again, during addressing the socialization piece to their peers during remote learning. So this could be a situation where your child feels like isolated, they feel alone, they don't feel connected. Maybe your child's angry and they've shut down, or they're overly anxious. They feel disconnected from friends. They miss activities that they've gotten so used to being involved in, whether that be a sport or dance or drama club or chess club or whatever it is that has been really meaningful for them in school that they're missing out on. And a lot of kids feel this way right now. So what is the district doing? So the academic Google Hangouts, Zooms, check-ins with your social workers and school psychologists, so many PBIS activities. I know that there was a whole PBIS committee working over the summer creating virtual rewards and reward systems so that even though you're not in school, your children are going to be engaged in this whole PBIS model and really be given those kind of motivators and, you know, keeping them on track, reward system, the whole thing. So that's really going to be very important in the remote learning model, that this is going to be executed in your district. Educators have collaborated with local businesses. I know that I had spoken with a parent in Catskill just the other day who was saying that the social worker and some of your teachers, Mrs. Maestri and some others, who were going around to local businesses and forming partnerships with them to ensure that they had a lot of different rewards available for students. And so many community businesses got involved.
That's so incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's where the community pulls together, and that's just so amazing to see when you have a community like that. So
yeah, I know the whole from what I heard, the PBIS committee, that every business that they went to wanted to donate something. They wanted to give a gift certificate. They wanted to do something to help the children in their community, and that is so important. And I know also the school is going to be engaging in virtual reward ceremonies. Last fall, there was the Adopt a Senior program, or last spring, there was the Adopt a Senior program. So many different things that they are really working so hard to help your child to feel connected, right? So what can you do? Setting up a safe hangouts, outdoor social distancing, kind of thinking outside the box. What can you do to help your children socialize during this time in a safe way? And, you know, that's going to look different for every student. Doing daily, weekly chats with friends, that's going to be really big. That's something that we did last spring in my son's class. And it was just so awesome to every couple days check in with his classmates, even though we were home. So your children can be doing that in a non-academic setting. Having them, you know, instead of playing video games all night, have them talk about different games that they're playing, or, you know, like kind of have those kind of conversations. Moving on to local agencies and support.
So in the guide, and also a supplementary attachment, is the different areas where you can access support local, specific to your community. It goes over the information about essential workers, useful local websites and phone numbers. You know, in the event that you potentially need a COVID test, where can you go? Where, you know, are they requiring documentation? Are they requiring appointments? So the supplemental attachment really goes into that breakdown. It provides different mental health therapists in your local area that you could see, your child could see, different food distribution locations. We kind of break down where are your food banks, where are your soup kitchens locally to Catskill, as well as your surrounding areas in both Greene and Ulster County, because I know you guys are right there on the border there, so sometimes it's easier to go to Saugerties or into, anyway, sorry. In terms of internet information, so that also is on there. I know that Dr. Cook has been working hard to really help the families get that Wi-Fi access. So that is another area that's broken down. So that big question that Damien asked us before was, my child's not engaged in remote learning, or how can I support them in this process? And again, this may look like your child not actually completing the work, or your child being frustrated or angry and not wanting to engage. Your child could have been an excellent student in the classroom, but not a great student remote. So your district is working really hard to support those efforts. Your teachers are going to be providing very high quality instruction with both asynchronous and synchronous learning activities. Again, very different than what maybe you saw in the spring. Your teachers worked incredibly hard in the spring, but in the fall, it's back to business. And the education curriculum is going to be thriving, and your children are going to be engaged a lot more and in a very different way. And this is also temporary. There's a plan to return to school. Mm-hmm. Students will have very clear understanding of expectations. Brain breaks will be incorporated throughout. And as a parent, there are areas where you could really support, and that big one is setting those clear expectations from the beginning. Maybe coming up with a contract with them is something that we have found really helpful for parents and students that maybe struggle. So we're creating our distance learning contract, you're signing it, I'm signing it, maybe we're even getting your teacher involved, creating those contracts. That lack of participation in terms of, falling behind, reaching out to the teacher, using student, what are the incentives? What's going to help motivate your child? Maybe that's something in school, maybe that's something that you're working with them on at home, providing reinforcement and motivators to really help them tap into.
Yeah, and even those like instant feedback, if they finish an assignment, one of the courses they're done, something as simple as, here's a sticker, here's a smiley face in the elementary level. Like, those little things really keep kids like, oh wow, you acknowledge I did this, I feel motivated. Also, hanging up the student work, or your child's work. I'm so used to saying student, but your child's work. I know in where my son is going to be working, I set up a clothesline across the wall, and I'm just going to hang up his, with little clothespins, hang up his work as he does things each week, so that, he feels like, I'm acknowledging the work that he's doing. I don't want to just keep, pushing through it and not let him see like he would at school, right? His work would be up and he would see it up there. And I think that that's something that's small, but it is really important.
Yeah, a couple of things just as a parent that I am doing for my child, and I always recommend to parents too, is I bought these really cute things on Amazon. They're like a punch card, and you can create it, with an index card at home. Have your different subjects for the day. Punch each subject when they complete it, if they did a good job, and then whatever they earn for that day, or reward system. I bought a cheesy claw, like you see at the arcades. I bought a cheesy $20 claw thing. So when my child meets her goal for the day, she does her class, she does her subject, she gets to play in the claw thing and take out a little stuffed animal. So it doesn't have to be, especially at those lower levels, at K through 5, those motivators are, can be a stuffed animal, and they're going to work for it. As they get older, it's going to be a lot harder in terms of higher motivators. But if you can do intrinsic motivation, great. Sometimes we've got to use those, those game systems, when you get your work done, you get an hour, we got to get creative.
Right.
And we do recognize that it's a struggle, but making sure to reach out to your teachers and your support staff at school if your kid is struggling. Do it right away. Day 2, day 1, don't wait. I think that's big for the fall.
Yeah, and we also want to make sure that we're not forgetting that about the intrinsic motivation. So our kids, whether we really always believe it or not, are motivated. And motivation is not one of those things like you have motivation or you don't. And I think that's a very common misconception, but all our children are motivated, and they do want to learn. So I think that, they're curious, they want to learn new things, and really acknowledging that and asking them with those questions. Oh, what did you learn today? Or, they're not always so forthcoming with that, but, in this kind of remote learning environment, pushing them a little bit more to try to get those answers is very important.
Absolutely. So just quickly, this is an example that what you'll get in that parent guide. This is your different local food banks, where they're located, phone numbers, when to locate that food access. We're mixed in terms of our families. So some families are really going to need this. Some families are going to need this that never needed it before. It's always recommended to call ahead of time. Food banks can be low on resources, so give a call before you go. And we just wanted to end it with, what is your school supply back to school list? What do you need?
Yeah, you need to have a lot of patience this fall. You need to be flexible, calm, have a sense of humor. That's important.
It is important. Showing that love and compassion. We can't stress that enough, how important it is. Your teacher's going to be working really hard to make sure your kids feel loved and welcomed back to school, and get excited for them as well. Encourage them, be positive. The school supply list may look a little different this year, but think of all of the incredible social emotional skills that your child's learning, the resilience that they're building at this time. I mean, it's certainly not the way we wanted it to happen, but it's experiences like this that our community comes together, our parents rally, our teachers rally, and it's where our children thrive. So use it as an opportunity for growth for your kids, and your school's working hard to do that as well. So if you have any questions, we can open it up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You will get a copy of this presentation as well. But yeah, Dr. Cook, do you want me to unmute if parents just want to maybe ask a question verbally?
I'd rather not unmute.
Okay.
I believe so. We can use the chat box.
Okay.
And I apologize for that.
No, I understand. I totally understand.
Absolutely. So we want to just make sure.
Oh, great. So this is a good question. So what suggestions do you have to set up workspaces for kids?
Yes.
I have 5 kids doing remote learning. God bless you. 2 high schoolers, 2 middle schoolers, and 1 elementary and a 3-year-old at home. So just a couple ideas that we've presented to parents, and Lorena has some really good ones too, is you may not have the space for all 5 of those. One very simple thing is we've seen parents set up, if you buy a trifold poster, so you could have a couple of your children right at the table, and if you have that trifold poster up, maybe you decorate and set it up for math or English. You could have 3 of your children sitting at the table, and everyone's got their own space, and they're looking at their trifold poster of different activities. You can staple folders. You can
really decorate. I've seen some
yeah.
really cool ones. Actually, I don't know if any of you are a member of the Hudson Valley Moms Group or any of the parenting sites. A lot of parents have been sharing. I shared my son's space that I currently have set up a couple last week. So yeah, there's a lot of different things out there right now, but I do like the trifold idea because you can have one set up in advance for each subject area and really make it a completely different experience. So if it's a social studies one and you want to have like a map of the world or a map of New York, and you want to have different things on there that really make them feel like they're in a social studies setting, you can do that in a very cheap, easy way. Also, with these, ages, you might want to break them up in terms of where they are actually working, and your kids best. So I don't know if your 2 high school kids might distract each other. You might want to have your high school child working with your youngest. That's really going to be, whatever is.
Yeah, I would say with 5 kids, your best bet is really to create that schedule and a rotating basis of who's going to be actively where. So I wouldn't at all times have your high schooler working in the room, or I would rotate that, right? So sometimes maybe your high schooler is working in their room, but also have them at the table. So you're also monitoring what's happening on that device at times. So maybe create that schedule, be flexible, rotate. It's going to be challenging.
And the academic learning module will really help you in terms of, we have a whole video that breaks down how to create that schedule. So I think that the schedule is definitely going to be very important. And also, balancing screen time with supplemental resources. So printed resources that might be coming home from school, books, other things, so that your children obviously can't all be on the screen at the same time. So that complicates things, but if you do schedule it in, it is doable. It's just, it does require that kind of the scheduling piece. So I would definitely recommend checking out the academic learning module for that. And also we do go into some more of the different types of ways for you to create that learning environment that's very conducive to learning. So, you know, things that are simple like making sure that there's access to plug-in devices, making sure that the devices that the child does have next to them are not devices they shouldn't be on. They don't need to be on their Switch when they're doing their math work, right? So we want to eliminate distractions and just make sure that it's a simple things. It's a well-lit area, you know.
Yeah, the guide has 10 different ways you can tailor the technology appropriately.
Yeah.
So blocking out different apps. I think a lot of parents always find that area very helpful in terms of if they're not as savvy as their high schooler, there's definitely apps where you can control a lot of that. So that may really be helpful too.
And I just see a question coming in about, is it okay to work outside sometimes? So I am a teacher, but I do have, you know, my son going into first grade and my daughter going into preschool. Remotely though. So I'm going to be doing as much outside stuff as possible in the fall. I think that outside classrooms are, you know, amazing. So if you have access to a yard and you can go out and just do reading on a blanket on the lawn or go for a hike or try to, you know, do something where you integrate whatever the content is that week with some kind of outdoor activity. The more you can do that, the more engaged your children are going to be. And it really gives that balance that they need. Because they're not going to be, you know, yes, they need to be on the screen and they need to be doing whatever it is that they're expected to do from each of their teachers. But there's also a way to break that up and to make sure that you have a balance of doing things outdoors and being inside. Yeah. So I definitely recommend that.
And that's a good point too, is don't be afraid to mix it up. So if it's been 3 weeks and you have this great workspace and your child's not being productive, mix it up. So we don't recommend mixing it up right away. You want to have a consistency for a period of time, but don't be afraid to move it to a different room or move it to a different location. You know, maybe you have the flexibility of having your child come into your workspace. You know, I have somebody that I'm close with, you know, she owns a bakery. She's having her kids come into the bakery and work right there alongside of her. So, you know, you have to just be as flexible as possible because you're not going to necessarily know how your child's going to respond to some of the changes that are going to be implemented in the fall. So did you get any other questions, Damien?
Not that I have up right now. No.
Okay.
That's okay. That's great because like I said, you can access all these learning modules. Dr. Cook will disseminate these to you for each section of the plan. I'm not exactly sure how that process will work, but you know, you will be able to access them and you'll be able to access this webinar and also of course the parent reentry guide, which again, use that table of contents. Don't be overwhelmed. It is a big document, but you can really just look at it at your leisure and address, you know, focus on the areas that you are most concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a question that I have is are you going to have the ability to support Dr. Cook and his team to answer questions that may come up along the way? Do you have a way to your contact info available?
Yep, absolutely.
Dr. Cook can reach out to us with any questions he has at any time, and we will be 100% available to answer those questions as needed. And we're more than happy to do that.
Yeah. Great.
So we really, really do thank you. I know it's late, and we thank you so much for taking your time out and coming and listening to this. And we really hope that you utilize the plan and that these resources it's so important to us that it's not just this guide that sits on a shelf, that it really is actionable. And that is really how we are using those learning modules to break it down and so that you can really use this. We want it's a living document. You know, we might adjust it. It will be you'll always have a current version of it on your district website, but we want you to use it. Use it. Yeah. It will be helpful to you. Use those virtual field trips. Who knew that there were virtual field trips in mathematics? I certainly didn't, but there are.
Great. So thank you so much, Dr. Cook.
Yes, Amber, Raina, and Damien, thank you so much. I know our parents appreciate it. I see some thank yous in the chat box. And again, all the information is on our website. So what we're going to do is, like I said, by tomorrow, we're going to upload this video, this webinar, but the attachments that you sent to me are already on the website. So parents will have these resources at their fingertips.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great night. It was so great talking with
Thank
all of
you.
you.
Yes, stay safe. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.